I believe one of the most powerful gifts you can share is your story. Sharing your story to be a beacon of light for others, empower change, and connect to the bigger world around you. This is how we heal. Everyone has a story worth sharing. These are the beautiful stories inspired by badass women and their lasting legacy. This is the Female Impact. Hi there, I'm Liz Logan, the founder of Be Soul, and also this new Female Impact interview series that I am so passionate about. And today, normally I would be sitting next to someone actually doing an interview about someone else, but today you get to learn a little bit more about me and why I'm so passionate about doing this interview series. For the longest time, I have dreamt of bringing this to life, and I feel like we all have a story to tell, really deep inside of us. And most oftentimes when I say that, people are like, I don't have a story, my life is boring. But the truth is that in each and every one of us, we've had life experiences and triumphs and disappointments and things that we've learned from. And I believe all of that brings us to a human level and connects us on a much, much deeper level. So my vision and dream was to have conversations around the real and the raw and the honest and the true and soulful conversations that, we could sit with a cup of tea and laugh about life, maybe cry, and just get to know each other better, because I feel like we're moving at such a fast-paced clip in the world at large, and the connection that we're having to one another is getting less and less, or it's changing and it's different. And I go to Starbucks and I see these kids sitting across from one another with huge venti size, I don't want to call them big gulps because that's not Starbucks, but sugary drinks, and they're on their devices, not even focusing on one another or connecting to one another. And that's a little judgment, because who knows, they could be connecting on their phones, chatting with each other when they're right face to face. But what I've longed for and missed is deep connection with people in this lifetime, and conversations that really help people feel more human. And I think that there's this web of story connection that bring us closer together, that when we hear ourselves in someone else's story, or we see ourselves in someone else's struggles, that it makes us feel like, hey, I'm not alone. And you know what? This isn't just about my isolated incident, that there are many, many other people going through similar struggles in life. And as I'm witnessing so much unhappiness and depression and mental illness and just people not where they want to be in life, this really provoked this passion project for me to bring women in particular sitting down next to me and just having a conversation. So that is the Female Impact. I'm hoping that this is a global scale reach. I want to hit women all over the world. It is my true belief in honesty that women are here to heal the planet. And I think that with our compassion and our heart, not to say that we don't need men in the world, because we need both. And the Female Impact is about bringing forth powerful conversations with women and men. There's going to be some men on this series as well. But for us to be able to come together collectively as a human race and better the world. And I think we can do that through the power of stories and conversations like this one. So again, I'm so excited that you're here for the Female Impact. Continue to watch. And at the end of this video, I'll tell you how you too can get involved, whether you know somebody that you want to be on this interview series or whether you want to contribute in another way. I'll let you know that at the end. But for now, let me tell you a little bit more about me. So we're going to do an interview style segment on me today so that you can just understand a little bit about who I am and how I came to be the person that I am today.
What quote inspires and motivates you to be yourself and do what you love?
Gosh, there are so many quotes that I live by, and truly it's part of my platform on Instagram. I love quotes because I feel like again, it's that relatability, right? That we're not the only ones that have these thoughts or that think this way, but they're also inspirations. So for me, I don't know, and just thinking about that quote, I didn't prepare for this interview. So I would say the quote that resonates right now for me around that is a quote by Calamity Jane that says, if a girl wants to be a legend, she should just go ahead and be one. And to me, that quote gives us all permission to rise up into our greatness and into our true purpose and passion. And that's how I'm trying to live my life. That, you know, if I can just leave this earth an ounce of a better place than I came in and have a little bit of impact while I'm here, that would be legendary for me. So that's what that quote reminds me of.
What 3 events most shaped your life?
Whew. You know, everybody has big moments in their life that really do shape themselves. The 3, you know, probably without, you know, being cliche, the day I was born was a pretty good one, but I'm not going to say that one because we were all born into greatness. The first one was when I was pretty young. I was 18 months old when my parents got a divorce. And just like many, many, many others go through divorce, it's a painful ripping of lives, right? And I think at such a young age, there was a lot of confusion that left me searching for answers in my own life, a lot of feeling like I wasn't good enough, a lot of feeling like, you know, maybe if I could have done something better or different. I mean, I was little, so I'm not saying that I necessarily had those thoughts when I was 18 months old, but as I grew to know what divorce really meant, I started this story inside of what does it really mean to be good enough. And I think that came from my parents divorcing and just feeling like there was a separation of my dad was in a different place, mom was in a different place. I was getting love, which I want to actually touch on in a second. But there was some confusion around my role and how we got there, right? And so I kind of blamed myself in a lot of ways that I think kids do. And I felt like if I could have been better, or if I could have loved more, or if I could have, you know, excelled greater, then maybe my parents would have stayed together. And as we all know, when we get to a later part in life and you mend that heart space, I've certainly realized that had nothing to do with me and everything to do with their true path and really honoring, you know, especially my dad's path and his heart. So that was a changing moment. Now, what I want to say in addition to that is my family, and this is, I'll probably start crying first off the bat, but my family has been one of my greatest teachers. And let me pull it together here. But what I mean by that is in moments that were dark, like the divorce, moments of change, both of my parents, who went on to marry other partners, came together and just surrounded everything with love. And it was the theme throughout my whole entire life. There was no animosity and there was no judgment and there wasn't a lot of even, I mean, there were times of tension, but there was just this blanket of love around everyone. That's what I grew up knowing divorce to be. And I can honestly speak from the heart, being a child in divorce, that if you have ever or are going through that right now, love is such a beautiful solution, and it can heal so much, and it can just save a lot of pain. So I'm beyond proud. Even when I was getting married, my dad stood up and gave a wedding toast, as most dads do at their daughter's wedding. And it was a toast to my stepdad and a gratitude for both my mom and stepdad on the job well done in raising us and the appreciation he had towards them. And again, the whole room is just sobbing because there's so much love to be shared. And then of course the rebuttal to that is my stepdad got up later and gave his speech and gave so much love to my dad. And so it was just always this theme, this common theme, that there was no hate, it was love, and love heals all things, I truly believe. So that was, long story, that was my first moment that really shaped me. There were many, many, many along the way. I was a very lost teenager and a very lost 20-something, as again, I think a lot of people can relate to. But actually, I think my most defining turning moment, I won't bore you with all the dark that happened in my life. I can definitely tell you those stories later. But the most defining moment for me was I actually had to get an ankle reconstructive surgery. And I just couldn't do the things that I wanted to do. I was really active as a little girl and even teenage years in college. So I had to have this ankle reconstruction. I was living by myself. It was pretty humbling, actually, because I remember we had to get a wheelchair for the house because I couldn't do anything. And so you put yourself in that position. But the one thing that was amazing about it is that there was no rehab, no formal rehab for this massive surgery. And I thought that was quite strange, knowing I was a kinesiology background in college, and knowing the human body, I couldn't imagine that you can go in and reconstruct a foot and not give any sort of formal rehab. So I thought that was fascinating. And I was, into gossip magazines, and somewhere along the way read, I think it was Courtney Cox was doing Pilates, and she ended up having a Bernese Mountain Dog, which I later had to have a Bernese Mountain Dog. But I knew nothing about Pilates, and I decided that I would go research what this was. And it became a turning point to my whole entire trajectory of my life, because Pilates was the gateway in which I learned to love myself. And it was the teacher that showed up, right? The student, I always say, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And that's exactly what happened with Pilates. It could have been anything I was actually thinking about. I was doing a lot of yoga at the time. But there was something about the mind-body connection with Pilates that I learned how to move completely different in an honored way of my body and in a graceful way of my heart. And I had been pounding the pavement and grinding and just going at it, thinking that that was the way you were supposed to move and treat your body. And it was actually quite abusive if I look back and think about the inner voices that I was telling myself, and it was just a bad relationship. And Pilates really changed that. It taught me how to slow down and get methodical and get in tune with what muscles are moving to make you want to do this, and how are you going deeper, and how can you connect. And man, did it release a ton of emotions for me of past stories that I carried with me that subsequently ended up and manifested in my physical body, right? We all do that. So that was a huge life change that ended up becoming my career for many, I think I've been a master Pilates instructor now for, gosh, I don't know, I've been teaching Pilates for 23 years, 25 years, something like that. And that was really the breakthrough, where I didn't really understand mind-body connection. And that was a whole gateway of opening for me to kind of go through this. And then later study with yoga and all these different ancient methodologies to really understand how mind-body connection works. So that was brilliant. So that was probably my second massive life impact, or biggest life moment. And then the third one, I actually went through my own divorce. And, I remember being a little girl, after you go through a divorce, the last thing you want to do is create your own later on in life. And I remember thinking, if I could do one thing in life, this was as a little girl, if I could do one thing in life, I would love to have the kind of marriage that my grandparents did. They just were rock solid, and they respected each other, and they loved each other so deeply. And they were funny, and they had a lot of fun. And it just was the representation of what I wanted my marriage to look like. And so I remember saying, if there's anything I do right in this lifetime, let me have that kind of relationship and that kind of love and that kind of committed marriage. And so I entered my first marriage, and without getting into too much detail, I will just say that I believe that we all have contracts in life, and some are meant to be lifelong contracts and some are not. And unfortunately, this marriage was not meant to be a lifelong contract, and so we decided that it needed to end in divorce. Why that was such a pivotal moment is, of course, again, it's that ripping apart of your life and completely changing everything. But it was also in a time financially where we both left pretty broke from that marriage. Not just brokenhearted, but financially pretty low. And I owned a business, I owned a wellness center, and I wasn't sure I was going to be able to keep it open. I had 15 people at that point working for me that were like my kids. I was super nervous that I wasn't going to be able to provide them a place to work. And so it was a huge moment of digging really deep inside and going, okay, what is it going to take for me to rise to this occasion, for me to be able to financially support myself on my own, to be able to stay, to keep my business open, I had to re-qualify for a loan on my own, which, I mean, it was the first time I was doing a lot of these things, and it terrified me. I remember actually meeting with the president of the bank and telling him my vision. And honestly, if there was an angel in the financial industry at that point, that was this man, because he saw the potential and knew that he trusted my vision and supported that and helped me get the loan that I needed to keep the business open. And then, and then I keep building, right? So how does my life rebuild from there? And it was I think the single biggest moment of self-defying strength that I've ever gone through, because I had to know that I could survive on my own in every aspect of that word. And I did. And it was a huge, talk about self-confidence raising, not in an egotistical way, but just in a soulful, whole way, that I knew I was whole. I knew I would be okay. And it was also one of those lessons in life that I would love every woman to have to experience, of being able to take care of yourself on your own without any help. It's very, very humbling. And so that was the third moment in my life that really shaped so far, and we'll see. But those are the big three ones.
In moments of self-doubt or adversity, how do you build yourself back up?
Whew. Gosh knows, after I just told you all of that I've had a lot of moments of self-doubt. I think, again, maybe it started from early on when my dad wasn't in the house. But self-doubt has been something that I've struggled with. And, I think partially it's because I'm a big dreamer. And a lot of people closest to me will be like, oh my God, she's over the top. But I have big vision, and I have huge hope for humanity. And so that comes with self-doubt, because it's not easy to dream big, and it's not easy to have a lot of aspirations that you want out in the world, and how do you bring them to fruition? In moments of self-doubt, what I've learned, I think it used to be, where's the closest tequila that I can get my hands on, and let me drown in that for a moment. That's no longer serving, because I'm too wide awake, which is unfortunate, because it's really a nice compliment to a mind day when you just can't seem to escape. But now what actually I find is I have to get still. And in the moments of self-doubt, what I do is I go get as still as I can somewhere outside. So wherever I am, whether it's the beach, the mountains, the city, it doesn't really matter. But signs come to me. And it actually is, I'll give you a perfect example. The other day, I was really self-doubting myself, because I had launched a program that I was thinking was going to be this massive success, and it didn't do what I thought it was going to do. And I was like, what? I don't get it. I just don't really understand. And I had this moment of self-doubt. As you do as an entrepreneurial, I think you try things, and then you have to recourse, and then you try again, recourse. And it gets exhausting, because you're like, wow, am I ever going to hit the home run that I'm looking for? And this was one of those moments where I was like, gosh, it would be so much easier for me to go get a corporate job where someone just tells me my tasks, what I need to do. I put it away for the end of the night, and I go home. But I know that's not what I'm made for, and not what I'm here to do, right? So I decide, I was really upset. And so my voice, my honoring voice inside me said, go outside. And it was a blizzard, and it wasn't very comfortable to go. on a walk, but I did. And I didn't go anywhere other than walk down to the river by my house. And the most amazing thing, I decided I didn't want to listen to music, which oftentimes calms me in moments of self-doubt. I didn't even want to do that. I just wanted to hear the stillness, the quiet of the snow falling and the water trickling over the rocks in the river. It definitely is a slower pace in the winter. As I was approaching the river, I mean, I couldn't have timed this a millisecond earlier or after. As I'm getting ready to walk across the bridge and I'm asking the universe to please give me a sign that I'm on the right path, a bald eagle swoops down and almost takes me out, and then continues to soar down the riverbed. And the eagle is freedom. And I remember literally, I didn't fall to my knees because I was at the bridge, but I looked over the bridge. I had the bridge hold me for a second, and I just started crying. And it was one of those moments of stillness that the answers just protected me in that moment. I felt like that eagle flying at that exact second was the universe saying, you know what, it's all okay. Just stay the course and you're gonna be okay. And I went home and made a great dinner and went to bed, and all was forgotten. I don't even remember what I was upset about, really. So self-doubt for me, those moments, I gotta get quiet. And sometimes that means that, you know, I gotta move my body, I gotta go meditate, maybe it's a yoga class, maybe it's a massage, but I have to do something to shift my mind and get me out of where I am.
Closing questions,
okay.
Rapid fire.
Okay.
Who were the most influential women in your life that shaped the person you are today?
Woo! I had so many powerful women, but I had these amazing grandmother figures. I had 3 grandmothers in my biological family, but then I also had, my great-grandmother, I remember actually. I had a woman come into my life not too long ago that became a very, very, very dear, dear friend of mine. She's since passed. But there's something about the grandma wisdom that I have needed to cultivate in my life to be able to be the leader and the woman that I am. And so those for sure are the most influential women in my life by far.
What do you think the world needs more of right now?
Love, hands down love. And what I'm concerned about, or an observation I'll say, we're living in very masculine energy right now. And I don't mean men, I mean masculine energy. So there's feminine energy, which is soft and loving and more compassionate. And then there's masculine, which is more of action-oriented and to-do and productivity and all of that stuff. And I feel like we need to just blanket Mother Earth for sure with love. We need to blanket humanity with love. We need to embrace each other with love. And I believe the Beatles nailed it, that love is all you need. And I think love heals all. Love heals all things. So if you can lead with love, that's what I keep saying every single day. If nothing else, if I can just lead with love, someone will be touched by the effect of that.
What brings you happiness?
Oh my gosh, so many things. For sure, this interview series. What brings me happiness is I love being able to have someone step into their dream and me be witness to that. I love that. I love doing that. I love being a part of that. The small moments, it's the simple joys for me that bring me the biggest happiness. Friends, family.
What does badass and beautiful mean to you?
Well, so badass and beautiful is a big overlay in everything that I teach, I preach, I believe in. Badass is the masculine energy. I think no matter if you're male, female, we've got this energy, this edge to us that makes us badass. I think that's in conjunction with beautiful makes us whole. So for me, badass and beautiful is the whole trajectory of a human being. And if we can nurture both sides of those and flex both sides of those, man, I think you come into a remarkable human being. And so a lot of times you'll see people have more badass or more beautiful. And I think, it's that dance that sometimes you need one more than the other. But I think to know both sides, it's a beautiful gift.
Complete this sentence. I want to be.
Man, I want to be impactful. I want to leave the world a better place than when I came in it. And I want to impact lives and try to help others live a more full and whole, authentic life. That would be a gift. Thanks for joining me today. That was a little glimpse into my life. Over the course of this series, you're going to hear me interject with the interviews that I'm doing. And so you'll get to know me on a deeper level. Until then, I hope to see you again on The Female Impact. Thanks for joining me.